I became insane with long intervals of horrible sanity. I will be speaking about the tragic and mysterious life of Edgar Allan Poe, his upbringing, how he became a poet, and his last years of life. Born January 19th, 1809, and died October 7th, 1849. Born to traveling actors, Poe, along with his brother and sister, were left orphans at 3 years old. Poe was taken in by John Allan and his wife, Frances Ballantyne Allan, but Poe's brother and sister were taken in by separate families, meaning they were all separated at a young age. John Allan tried to upbring Poe as the Virginia gentleman. He tried to teach him everything about tobacco farming and how to become successful at it. But Poe was never interested in any of this. Poe was always interested in becoming a writer and following his dream of becoming a poet, a writer, and an editor. In 1826, Poe was sent to the University of Virginia, but sadly he was only sent with a third of the funds that he actually needed. With this being said, Poe burned furniture, Poe gambled, he tried to do everything that he could to gain funds and to maintain his position at the University of Virginia, but he failed. Poe was forced to drop out after the end of his first term. After leaving the University of Virginia, Poe found his fiancée, Elmira Royster, was engaged to another man, leaving him with heartbreak. After his heartbreak, Poe returned to the Allan mansion. But Poe was just so full of hostility towards John Allan and so full of just rage, he was furious, that he only lasted a few short months at the mansion. He stormed out after these few short months, and he just set forth on his journey to become a great poet and just to find excitement and to find adventure. After storming out of the mansion, Poe published his first book, Tamer Lane, at only 18 years old. John Allan passed away shortly after, leaving Poe out of his will. But by this point, Poe was living with an aunt in Baltimore named Maria Clemm. Maria Clemm later became like a mother figure for Poe. Poe continued publishing short stories and won various contests. With winning these contests, Poe formed great relationships with people, and with these great relationships, he later earned a position at Southern Literacy Messenger. At the Southern Literacy Messenger, Poe became a famous critic, he became a writer, he became a poet, and he became an editor. With his fierce criticism, Poe earned his nickname, the Tomahawk Man. Only a short year after working for this magazine, Poe made it the most famous magazine in the whole South. At 27 years old, Poe married his 14-year-old cousin, Virginia Clemm, which was the daughter of Maria Clemm. Shortly after his marriage, he published his first book of short stories called The Grotesque and Arabesque. He later moved to New York City and Philadelphia with his love, Maria Clemm, searching for better pay because the Southern Literacy Messenger just wasn't giving him the sufficient pay that he needed. In 1845, Poe published his most famous piece of literature, The Raven. At this point, Poe was living his lifelong dream of owning his own magazine and publishing his own writings in New York City. By this point in Poe's life, he was drawing large crowds to his lectures and earning the money that he always wanted. In 1846, Virginia's health began to deteriorate. Virginia lived this last year of her life very sick, and she passed away in 1847 from tuberculosis at only 24 years old. Poe was left devastated. He was unable to write for months. Many criticized him and said that he wouldn't be able to live much longer, and sadly, they were right. He only lived 2 short years after the passing of Virginia Clemm. With the passing of his wife, Poe traveled from city to city giving long lectures, which also filled a majority of his time. In the summer of 1849, Poe reconnected with his first fiancée, Elmira Royster, which at this point was widowed. Royster and Poe planned to marry in Virginia, but shortly before the marriage, Poe disappeared for 5 days in Baltimore. He was later found in a public house that was being used for elections. After being found in this election house, Poe was rushed to a hospital, and this is where he lived his last few moments of life. Poe passed away on Sunday, October 7th, 1849 at 5 a.m. at Washington College Hospital at only 40 years old. Poe passed away from all his loved ones. He passed far from his family, far from his home, far from everyone that he knew. He was by himself when he passed away. He also left the world with no children. After Poe's passing, there was never an autopsy performed on his body, so they never found a cause of death. And still to this day, a cause of death remains a mystery. Poe was buried 2 fast days after his passing. With there never being found a cause of death, Poe still creates mystery till this day. This is the short life, upbringing, and how Poe became a poet and his last years of life. To conclude, Poe is known as the first professional American writer. He wrote many tales of mystery and horror, and he also gave birth to modern detective stories. Poe's mysterious and unfortunate life made him the fierce writer, critic, poet, and editor that he was. I became insane with long intervals of horrible sanity.